Okay, if you have knee arthritis or knee pain and have problems squatting because it's painful or you just feel like you can't get down there because it feels awkward, then you're likely making this one mistake. About 9 out of 10 of the people that I meet that have knee osteoarthritis are doing this one thing that actually makes squats very painful. But what if I told you you can actually learn to love squats again if we fix this one simple mistake? So I want you to pause this video and I want you to actually try to do a squat. And I know that if you're dreading it, or I'm probably getting a few eye rolls, but I want you to see what joint bends first. So if you were to squat down and pick something up from the ground, what joint bends first? Do your hips bend first or your knees? And I want you to really think about that for a second. So I do want you to try this. If you have some space, hit that pause button and just do one squat and then come back to me. Okay, so during that squat, what bends first? The knee or the hips? And this is very, very, very common, and so if this is you, that is okay. But it's a good thing because it's actually, we can fix it. If we are squatting down to pick something up, most of the people I see come here. We come almost forward, you bend your knees first, and then the hips bend just a little bit, but then your heels might come off the ground if your calves are tight, and it just feels awkward. It doesn't feel right because the joint that bends first takes most of the load. So when we're bending at the knees first, the knees take most of the load. But guess what? They're not really prepared to take all of that load, especially when you throw knee arthritis into it. Because even without knee arthritis, bending like this does not feel awesome. So you have to bend at the hips first. One of my favorite things while we're learning this, because it can be a little bit of a weird movement to get the hang of at first. So a lot of times what I like to do is if you put your hands right at your hips, so kind of right on those hip bones or maybe a little bit inside. And I want you to actually push your hips back like this. So you're pushing your hips back, your knees will bend a little bit, but you're pushing your hips back. Now this movement actually mimics getting up and down from a chair. So now I want to show you, keeping that same thing in mind, standing up and down from a chair. So I'm going to use this low couch, but I want you to find a surface that you can easily stand up and down from. And if you can't or have a low surface, use a pillow or something so that way you can stand up and down. Because if it's a surface that's really hard, this is going to be really hard to learn at first. Okay, so I want you to sit down in this chair or after the video. And now, when you stand up, as you sit down, I want you to have your hands on your hips, and I want you to physically push your hips back, and then come back. And then you're just gonna stand up, and then push your hips back. Now what this is doing is adding more of the load to the hips that are so much more prepared for that than the knees. And so this typically tends to feel a lot better. Now, it may not feel rosy at first, especially if you have knee arthritis and if your knees are feeling painful at the moment. But what I often see is that once your body learns the confidence of this movement, so at first it's like, what are you doing to me? We don't like squats, and sends these pain signals. But then once it starts to realize that, oh, this doesn't actually hurt as bad as we thought it would, and now you start to gain some confidence. So you start to see that pain dissipate. So if you have pain on the first repetition, that is okay. I challenge you to do a few more and see how it feels. Make sure you're using the hips first. So use your hips first and try to accumulate about 20 squats a day. This is also why it's important that you find a surface that you can stand up and down from. But finding that appropriate surface and standing up 20 times a day. And I have some people who are like, I stand up and down enough during the day, but we have to be more deliberate about it. We have to do like 5 at one time. That's going to challenge our muscles a little bit differently than standing up, going to do something, trying it again, going to do something. We have to be deliberate about it. So if you start to accumulate 20 a day, you can do sets of 5 throughout the day. We have like 12, maybe plus hours to get that done. And so they usually can be spread out enough. If you feel that you're not really getting it, or maybe you still have pain doing it and it's just not really clicking, there is one other way that you can incorporate using your hips. I'm going to show you with this pillow. You can use a pillow, a ball, whatever you have, an object you can hold out in front of you. So what I want you to try is you're going to push this out as you sit down. So you're going to push the pillow out as you sit down. Push the pillow out as you sit down. And your hips kind of automatically bend first. And this one is actually interesting to do without the chair, but if you've had a lot of knee pain squatting, I would stick with just using a chair for right now and trying not to just do it freestanding. But it's funny because when we're on a chair, our hips kind of automatically have to bend first because you're reaching back for that chair. But the second you step away, that's when we see this come back. And that's when this pillow motion can also be beneficial because you are essentially forcing your hips to go back. So you're pressing the pillow out as you sit back and then bring it back up. Notice your hips kind of have to bend automatically because if I try to bend my knees first, I'm in kind of this weird crouching motion. When, if you sit your hips back, that's going to give you so much more depth. It's not going to feel as awkward and it's not going to be as painful. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend mastering this chair squat or a couch squat first, being able to tolerate between 20 to 30 reps throughout the day, and then you can start progressing away from the couch and doing some freestanding things. But for the most part, with my clients, I typically stay with the chair. You can add weight, so you can hang on to a weight and stand up and down once you master this. There are plenty of ways that you can make this harder, but we have to master the basics first. Think hips first. Whenever you're squatting down to pick something up, or whenever you're sitting down in a chair, becoming aware of it can be so important and it can be so powerful. And you may even notice that stairs become easier. Once you start to learn to use your hips a little bit more, then your knees aren't going to take as much stress on the stairs. And those may start to feel easier. You might actually feel stronger too as you increase the number of squats that you can do. So hips first, hips first, hips first. That's what I want you to remember whenever you are doing anything squatting related. If this video is helpful, I would love it if you would hit that red subscribe button and share this with someone who may be hating squats right now and who could be absolutely surprised that they may actually be doing it wrong. We are here to help you navigate knee arthritis as best as we can and to decrease your knee pain so that you can do amazing, adventurous things. If you did try this and notice a difference, if you could put a comment down below, that way you can inspire someone else who is in your shoes to give this video a try and start squatting and start actually enjoying it. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I truly hope that this was helpful.